Now, Mike Bloomberg is being pounded for stop and frisk. And as I said on the Hannity show last night, that Mike Bloomberg ought to stop apologizing. There's nothing illegal about stop, question, and frisk if it's based upon a reasonable suspicion. It is, of course, a violation of the Fourth Amendment to simply, because somebody is a certain age and a person of color, to, quote, throw them against the wall, close quote, as Bloomberg said in that 2015 tape. I'm sure he was speaking off the cuff. And it also saved lives. And it turns out that according to that article anyway, that was in Newsday in 2013, based on a local poll that was taken in New York, 2/3 of blacks wanted to retain stop and frisk in some form. Said that he ought to stop apologizing for it. Back it up, explain why he supports it, and talk about all the numbers of lives that were saved. After all, as Heather McDonald pointed out, nearly 97% of the shooting victims in the city of New York are black and brown, even though the city has between 30 and 40% whites. And that is why the police are there. So Bloomberg ought to stop apologizing. He also said something else that he's getting hammered for. He was talking about the housing meltdown and said the blame for it is that pressure was put on banks to end redlining. He said at the time in 2008, and these were comments reported first by the Associated Press, quote, redlining, if you remember, was the term where banks took the whole neighborhoods and said, people in these neighborhoods are poor. They're not going to be able to pay off their mortgages. Tell your salesmen to go into those areas. And they said, oh, that's not fair. These people should be able to get credit. And once you start pushing in that direction, Bloomberg said in 2008, banks started making more and more loans where the credit of the person buying the house wasn't as good as you like. End of quote. And now he's being hammered for that. Honestly, all he was doing is stating a fact. Because of the Community Reinvestment Act that was passed by Jimmy Carter, we've talked about this, and teeth put into the CRA by Bill Clinton, telling banks if you don't lend to non-traditional borrowers and your CRA score is not sufficiently high and you want to merge, we're going to stop you. You want to place ATMs in various other neighborhoods, we're going to stop you. You want to put other branches elsewhere, we're going to stop you. And with Fannie and Freddie buying these mortgages through carrot and stick, lending criteria were changed all across this country. And as you well know, we had a recession, a so-called Great Recession, 2007, 2008, 2009. And a whole bunch of people who otherwise would never have bought homes but for the Community Reinvestment Act, but for the pressure put on banks to alter their lending standards to practically anybody who could fog up a mirror, it would not have happened. And that's what Bloomberg has said. Now, he hasn't responded to this revelation yet, to my knowledge. But if passed as a prologue, he's probably going to apologize for that too. Nothing whatever to apologize for. Now, one of the reasons for the Community Reinvestment Act is because of people like Barack Obama, who as a private lawyer filed a class action lawsuit against Citibank. He had 186 clients in that lawsuit claiming that these black clients were not getting loans because of racism. You know what happened? The lawsuit was filed in 1995. Article in the Daily Caller in 2012. So that's 17 years later. Quote, as few as 19 of those 186 clients still own homes with clean credit ratings, following a decade in which Obama and other progressives pushed banks to provide mortgages to poor African Americans. And then they quote one of these borrowers. And he admits, quote, banks were too easy to lend money to many who didn't qualify. I don't care what race you are, he continued. You need to keep financial wisdom separate from trying to help your people. End of quote. This is one of his private sector clients. 186 clients, only 19 of them still own homes with clean credit ratings. He didn't help anybody. And between 2010 and 2013, the net worth of black Americans fell almost a third. Why? Because so many of them had purchased homes, put a lot of money into the homes. The assumption was that there would never be a recession or that homes would continue to appreciate, whatever. And as long as they were appreciating, it was fine. Refinance, keep playing, refinance, keep going. But sooner or later, recessions come, and they don't care really how you're feeling that day. Now, I interviewed a man named Peter Wollaston. Peter Wollaston is a Republican on the so-called Housing Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission that was set up by Congress to look into the reasons for the housing meltdown. Now, the Democrats outnumbered Republicans on this inquiry commission, and they both filed separate reports. The Democrats all blame the housing meltdown on Wall Street greed, lack of oversight on Wall Street, lack of alleged oversight on Wall Street, that a whole bunch of people with dark blue pinstripe suits smoking cohibas just ripped off the American people. That's what the Democrats said. The Republicans filed minority reports. One of those who filed a minority report is my next guest, Peter Wollaston. And Peter Wollaston examined the same data and determined, as I said earlier, this was all due to government policy. Traditionally, you had to put down 20%, have a certain kind of credit rating, and it was all changed. People were getting loans with poor credit ratings, no money down. Changed the lending criteria all over the country. You didn't find this meltdown in Canada. You know why? They didn't have these policies.